Welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is the one, the only Todd Corder, and of course our fabulous producer Wayne Ridenauer in Memphis, Tennessee. Again, you can find us at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and of course Apple and Spotify now. My personal Twitter is at JJ Wayne's is RWY Jr. and Todd's is at Corder Todd. What's on tap this evening? We'll catch you up with everything Georgia State with voice of the Georgia State Panthers, Dave Cohen. We catch you up on the latest in college football as well. Talk dogs, big news out of Georgia Tech, and we'll talk Braves and we'll do our pick six. Wayne, how you doing this evening, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. Memphis is still at the top of the American Athletic Conference with Navy in second, and I think it's mainly because those two teams are the only ones that have played any conference games so far. But we begin our conference schedule with Temple at home this weekend, and I look forward to that game.
TC, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing okay. Just feeling a little bit under the weather after coming back and broadcasting the SIAC game up in Ohio between Central State and Miles.
I'm doing pretty good. Braves went and visited the president, Joe Biden, at the White House, getting congratulated for their world championship. Again, the tomahawk chop came up, and I'll just say this. It's not offensive, folks. The Braves work hand in hand with the Cherokee Indians, and they approve of the Braves and their fan base, and I will leave it at that. Without further ado, we welcome in our guest, voice of the Georgia State Panthers, Dave Cohen. Dave, how you doing tonight? Another tough loss, 0-4, dropped to Coastal Carolina in the Sun Belt, now 0-1, 41-24. Tell our listeners about the game last Thursday.
Well, Coastal Carolina is obviously a pretty good football team. They've kind of been, one of the faces of Group of Five football the last 2-3 years. We beat them last year in a shootout over in Conway, 42-40. But Grayson McCall did not play in that football game. Bryce Carpenter, the backup, played, and he still played pretty well. This year, we knew we were going to face Grayson McCall. There's not a 1A program in the country, well, there might be a couple, that if he had gone into the transfer portal, the Power 5, there's barely a Power 5 that wouldn't raise their hand and say, hey, come to our school. We'd love to have you. Yeah. And he's a really, really tough customer and a really, really good quarterback. And I'll be shocked if he doesn't get an opportunity to play on Sundays when he's done at Coastal Carolina. But, yeah, they came in and, the tone was set right from the get-go on the opening kick because we won the coin toss and deferred to the second half. On the opening kick, I think the kid returned it like 49 or 50 yards right to, I think, our 49-yard line. And then one play later, they're in the end zone. Literally, a one-play drive, they're in the end zone. I mean, I barely had time to get a second breath, and it was 7-0 Coastal Carolina. And honestly, that did, it's not a cliche. That game, that play, that start set the tone for the rest of the ball game. We, Georgia State, were playing from behind from the opening kickoff. And Coastal Carolina's offense, I mean, they can get it done. Again, they scored 41. We play Army Saturday up at West Point, New York. Coastal Carolina beat Army in the first game of the regular season this year. So the thing that worries me a little bit about, Georgia State right now, above and beyond the fact that we're winless in our first 4 ball games, South Carolina, North Carolina, Charlotte, and Coastal Carolina, aside from the injuries, and we've had 3 that are season-ending already, including Blake Carroll, who is one of our 4-team captains and starting inside linebacker, and last year was the second leading tackler. The thing that worries me is the amount of points that we've given up to this point. 35 at South Carolina, 35 at home to North Carolina, 42 to Charlotte, and 41 to Coastal Carolina. That's a lot of points. And say what you will about our offense, you're asking the offense to score 40 or more to have a shot to win the football game. And that's a tall task. That's tough to ask any offense to score that amount of points game in and game out to have a shot to win.
Well, hey, Dave, you mentioned it, a tough start, but the game was won on the line of scrimmage, and Coastal ran for almost 300 yards, and Georgia State, which is their bread and butter on the ground, ran for about 80. It's really hard for Georgia State to win football games. They've struggled somewhat with the passing game this season. The exception was last week's game. To me, that's where Coastal Carolina won it. They won it on the line of scrimmage.
Well, you get into a game, and in our case, we're on the radio, and yeah, I'm looking at the stat monitor, but sometimes certain things don't register. It didn't register till Harper was reading going over the post-game stats in our post-game show. Time of possession. Georgia State had the football for less than 20 minutes, 19 minutes and 56 seconds. Coastal Carolina had it for 40 minutes and 4 seconds, which speaks to what you just said, Todd. The ground game for Coastal Carolina, tore us up. They held on to the football. They dominated, as I just said, time of possession. And again, if you're going to give up 41 points, it's hard for your offense to score more than 41 points when you only have the football for 19 minutes and 56 seconds. It's one of those things, as I said to Harper, and Harper LaBelle, the former Atlanta Falcon, does color with me on the radio. It's like, Harper, do the math. The math doesn't add up. It's hard to score 40-plus points when you only have the football for just less than 20 minutes, and certainly that was the case. And the thing that worries me about Army, and of course this will be the third time now that we've played Army at Center Park Stadium, is that and they beat us last year. They scored 43, if I remember correctly. They beat us, I think it was 43-10 or 43-17. But anyway, they just beat Villanova by the score of 49-10, staggering that they rushed the football for 472 rushing yards. And so to me, the overall number one key, again, just to do the math, you don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure this one out. And it's Army football. They're going to try to run it down our throat, dominate time of possession, and the longer they can keep their offense and their run game on the field and keep our offense off it, well, then we could be in trouble.
You're listening to Dave Cohen right here on ATL Prime Sports. You can find Dave on Twitter at GA State Voice. Dave, you mentioned that game going into this weekend against Army. Tell our listeners how to catch the call, of course, and a little quick preview about the game going in.
Well, again, our Atlanta flagship radio station is a 50,000-watt, 88.5 FM WRAS, which is also streaming on the Georgia State Athletics mobile app, which you can download to your iPhone or your iPad or your personal device, whatever it may be. Also, TuneIn Radio mobile app, search WRAS. And out of Savannah, Georgia, we have a online radio outlet, lowcountryradio.com. And then in Gainesville, Georgia, we have an AM/FM as well at 97.5. So multiple ways to follow Georgia State football. They have a tall task in front of them at 0-4, Army at 1-2. Kentucker Greg, who's a great story in and of himself. I talked to him Tuesday at practice. He scored a touchdown in the Coastal Carolina game, giving him 19. That ties him for all time in Georgia State's 12-year, now 13-year football history, most rushing touchdowns in team history. So the next running touchdown that Tucker Gregg scores, and I say he's a good story because he arrived at Georgia State as a walk-on out of Chatsworth, Georgia, not heavily recruited, but he has been fantastic for Georgia State. But when his next touchdown, he'll be the all-time leader in rushing touchdowns in Georgia State football history. Anyway, Tucker Gregg, Jamias Williams, the rest of the running backs, Darren Granger, our quarterback, who's also good with his feet. We're going to have to try to do the same thing Army does, and that's keep our offense on the field, produce points, and keep Army's offense off the field for as long as we can. Otherwise, it could end up being one of those long afternoons where Army is just grinding it out with their running game.
This could be a quick.
I was going to say this is a two-part question real quick. Do you expect Georgia State to put more folks in the box, number two, do you get the feeling that if they don't win this game, that you could see a season spiral down pretty fast?
The answer to the first question is yes. To the contrary, as Coach Elliott pointed out, last week, in the last week and a half, we've lost, and I'm going to wait and see on Friday, because the depth chart, the too deep depth chart, doesn't always indicate injuries. But we were down 3 tackles going into the Coastal Carolina game. Bryson Broadway, Jonathan Bass, and Montavious Cunningham, all 3, were out. So I'm hoping that we get, and 2 of those guys obviously were starters at the beginning of the season, Broadway and Cunningham. So it would really, really be helpful if we could get some of these injured linemen back on the offensive line, obviously to enhance our running game. Listen, I'm only the radio guy, Todd, but I'm there pretty much almost every step of the way. And if we do not leave West Point with a win, and we're winless in our first 5 ball games, well, Game 6 is Georgia Southern at home, which is always a toss-up, no matter how good or bad either team is having season-wise. And then you got to go to Appalachian State, and the trip up the mountain to Boone is never an easy game. We've never beaten them. And, you know what they've done this year, even though James Madison just pulled off quite a shocker last Saturday. They beat Appalachian State in Boone, which is that's a big accomplishment for a team that just jumped up from FCS and is one of the brand new Sun Belt teams. So, yeah, I mean, if we are not able to leave West Point with a win, I don't want to say the wheels will come off, because that indicates that, when you say that, it gives what could be the wrong indication. And Coach Elliott is not one who is going to let things spiral out of control. Now, we may not win football games, but things will not spiral out of control. Coach Elliott and the coaching staff will continue to work, will continue to, emphasize things during the week at practice, but, you won't see things spiral out of control the way when people say that it brings up an image of things totally getting out of control and falling apart and, all that kind of stuff. I don't see that happening with Coach Elliott at the helm.
I agree. I think Coach Elliott will right the ship. We've seen Georgia State in just recent history, Dave, win a lot, 6 out of its 8 last games. And what was it? A couple years ago, they won 4 or 5 straight at the end of the year. So we've seen
7 of 8 last year.
Yeah, 7 of 8. I was 1 game off. So we've seen it happen. And this Saturday could be a quick matchup with both teams running the football. I like to call this a service school special. You might see that here, where everybody's just running the football. And Granger's got to take care of the football a little bit better. And I think Georgia State can come out of Atlanta this weekend with the W. Dave, as always, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. And go Panthers.
All right, appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys next week, hopefully.
Hopefully it's 1-4 and the ship starts to correct itself.
That would be nice.
Take care. Dave Cohen, voice of the Georgia State Panthers. You can find him on Twitter at GA State Voice. Let's move on into the show. Let's get into some NFL talk. The Falcons looked pretty good last week. Week 3 is over. Let's go around the NFL and talk about what we have learned from a few teams and what to expect moving forward. Let's talk about these Atlanta Falcons right quick, guys. And we'll go around the table. Wayne, TC, we'll all get some opinions in. But let's go with what we learned first. What did we learn? And I'll start this one off. I'll tee it off. Feeling pretty good. I had a birdie over the weekend playing some golf, so I'll tee this one off. We learned that Atlanta is a running football team. Yeah, you heard that right. That sounds pretty strange, doesn't it? After three weeks, the Falcons are 5th, top 5 in the NFL in rushing at right at, let me look at my notes, 156 per game, a little over actually. The O-line has improved tremendously. Same guys, just better play. Mariota has only been hit 13 times in 3 games. That's a big improvement for last year. And that's so far what I've learned from the Atlanta Falcons. TC, Wayne, I'll let you guys go off on the Falcons. Let's have a little fun, a round table on the Falcons.
Well, it's such a shock from a year ago from a team that couldn't run the football to see them where they are now. You got to give the coaching staff a ton of credit. Number two, they couldn't get to the quarterback a year ago, and they're starting to be able to get to the quarterback. You get better play from the offense and defensive lines, and it's amazing how much a football team can really improve. And we'll see this week here. This game is against Cleveland will be a test because Cleveland was able to move the football on that vaunted Steelers defense, and they have 10 days rest coming here to Atlanta, and that's going to be an advantage for the Browns. But this will be another big test for the Falcons. Each week is a test in this league, and let's see if they can continue to improve from a year ago.
Wayne, what have you learned about the Atlanta Falcons after 3 weeks?
Man, I've learned that I'm going to go get me a T-shirt made that says Pitts, London, Patterson. Let's go. Because those guys really impressed me. And I like the fact that Mariota is very confident. I mean, except for the one bad snap, he fumbled the ball. Everything that he is doing on the field looks like he is doing it with a purpose and like he knows what he's doing, unlike the former quarterback, which sometimes looked like he was questioning himself when he's back in the pocket.
Yeah, I like how the Falcons stayed out on the West Coast after the loss to the Rams last week. I think that helped tremendously in terms of in-game preparation and just reduced travel time. I mean, let's face it, we all know what it's like traveling from one end of the country to the other. Get a little jet lag. It happens to everybody. But you mentioned running back Cordell Patterson. Running the football a career high 2 out of the first 3 games. 141 was the career high against Seattle. A touchdown there. 107 of those yards, folks, came in the second half. That's another improving factor of that offensive line. Same guys, just much improved play. Look, and Patterson's having a career year. He might be off to his best career year ever. I just mentioned why. He got his first career high week 1 against the Saints. Then he just broke it 2 weeks later. And you mentioned Marcus Mariota. He does look confident. If he can clean up the fumbles, he did complete passes to 6 different receivers on Sunday, was 13 to 20, 229 yards and a TD. Did throw that interception. He's got 3 of those on the year. He's got to cut out the turnovers and the fumbles. And I like the Falcons a lot moving forward. I'm telling you, they're playing on all cylinders. We don't know what those cylinders will look like later on in terms of wins, but they're looking pretty good. Todd, what say you, man?
Well, when you look at game 1, when they had a huge lead against the Saints and blew that 26-10, then you were wondering how their psyche was going to be going into Los Angeles against the defending champs. The Rams fell way behind, came back and fell short, and you thought, okay, pretty nice recovery from all that, and then played much better this week against Seattle. Again, the test is going to be Cleveland has a pretty good defensive line. They have a pretty good offensive line, and they've got a big back named Nick Chubb, and all Georgia fans know how good Nick Chubb is. This guy, he averages over 5 yards a touch in his career, not just this season, but in his career in terms of running the football. You can list a lot of great running backs, Hall of Fame backs in their career, and they're not at 5 yards plus a touch. To me, this is going to test the Atlanta defense greatly on Sunday.
Yeah, my final thought on the Falcons, man, it goes back to Marcus Mariota and being able to run the football effectively. His legs, Cordell Patterson's legs, and Algier from BYU, the rookie's starting to make some rounds too. But Mariota had 7 carries on Sunday for 4 yards and threw on another rushing TD, his second rushing TD of the season. I like it. I think the Falcons are playing about as best as they possibly can. And again, we'll see how many wins that actually turns out to. TC, Wayne, your final thoughts on the Falcons, then we'll move to Detroit. Talk about the Lions, one of the surprises in the NFL.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say Drake London is still like the secret threat. I hope people don't start picking up on him and covering him because I like him being the out, especially on the third downs.
Patterson to me is a remarkable story, a converted wide receiver who can still play wide receiver, by the way, and is turned into a really good running back, courtesy of that offensive line, which is helping him out tremendously.
Let's move on to those Detroit Lions. They are a surprise in the NFL. They've been playing a lot better, a lot more improved. They look a lot better than the 13-1 team we saw last year. Look, they led 14-0 and 24-14 before a debacle of a fourth down call, as TC would call it. And I'll throw it to you, TC. I'll let you talk about your Detroit Lions, man, and that fourth down mishap, as you would say.
Well, to me, the turning point of the game, and a lot of folks don't talk about it, is 3rd and 1. Detroit had the football with 10 and change remaining in the fourth quarter, up 24-14. Decided to throw a 40-yard pass down the far sideline. They didn't get it. If they would have got it, yes, it would have been great. First down. Nobody talks about it. The fact they didn't get it, and when you don't run the football on 3rd and 1, and you average over 7 yards a carry through the first 3 games of the season against some pretty good defenses, may I add, in Philadelphia and Washington, the first 2 games of the season with Philadelphia and Washington, that kind of baffled me. And then you go to the next situation. They're up. What's 4th and 4? There's a little over a minute left. You have 3 options. You can pooch punt at 1. 2, you can try a 55-yard field goal with an average NFL kicker who was struggling, who already missed a 50-yarder earlier in the game. Or you can go for it, salt the game away, get the first down on 4th and 4, and the game is over. Minnesota has no timeouts. Well, the Lions, to me, selected the worst of the 3 options. They trotted the field goal kicker out there. He missed it, 55-yarder, and 3 plays later, Minnesota was in the end zone. And you made that decision because the Lions defensively, even though they've improved, they're still in the bottom half of the NFL, and Dan Campbell regretted that decision immediately. To me, it was a no-brainer. You had to go for it. But in defense of Campbell, he has done a wonderful job rallying this football team from the mess of Matt Patricia before. And for him to come out and admit it to the media just shows what type of individual he is. He's willing to take responsibility, and he made the mistake. And I'll tell you what, being on that sideline, making that decision, or being on your couch or broadcasting a game or whatever else you're doing is a lot different than being down there at the moment on the field at that time. And if Detroit had to do it over again, Taylor Decker said, I thought we were going for it. Goff said, I should have told him, Coach, let's go. And they didn't. And it caught the Lions, and we'll see what they do this week when they play Seattle.
Yeah, you're right about that. That was a blown call by Campbell. He even admitted it himself. I think at that time you do try and salt the game away. You ended up missing the field goal. And look, you'd gone for it 6 times prior this season on 4th down. Why not continue the trend? You're absolutely right. I thought an interesting stat that was very cool the Lions had going for them. It was an NFL record. They had scored a touchdown in 11 straight quarters to start the year off. Again, that was an NFL record to start a season. That's pretty impressive about those Detroit Lions. So again, a much improved team. Let's go into some other news and notes around the NFL. But first, we had to get one comment from Wayne on the Detroit Lions. Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, about the only comment I would say is that their 3rd down percentage efficiency is around 37%. Their 4th down is around 55%. I think they need to swap those stats. If they can get their 3rd down efficiency up to around 50%, I think they'd be a lot better off.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't have to go for it on 4th down.
Isn't that correct? Wow, that's an interesting stat, Wayne. Way to dig down and find that one. Look, other NFL notes that I find very interesting. The Florida teams are all atop their respective divisions. Miami leads the AFC East at 3-0. The Jacksonville Jaguars lead the AFC South at 2-1, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lead the NFC South at 2-1. I think that's just absolutely awesome.
JJ, I'll add real quick, and then we'll get off to the NFL and go to college. Miami was out. Buffalo had over 400 yards on Sunday. Miami didn't even get 200 through the air. Buffalo time of possession was double. I mean, they beat Miami in every statistical category except the scoreboard, the only one that counts. I was fascinated by that.
Wayne, any final NFL news notes?
Well, I tell you, I'm going to do my best Mr. B impression here and make a comment about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers being at the top of the NFC South. Not for long.
Oh, boy. We can all dream, Wayne. We can all dream, but Tampa Bay's got the GOAT, so we shall see.
I love it. Let's move on to our college football topic. Several ranked teams struggle with non-ranked teams. That's the theme over last weekend. Kentucky struggles with Northern Illinois. Number 6, Oklahoma drops another one to Kansas State. They have been their Achilles heel over the last couple years. And UGA got a test from surprise, Kent State. Let's go around the world of college football. But first, we got to stop right here in Atlanta. And we got to talk about Todd Stansbury, the athletic director and head football coach Jeff Collins, out at Georgia Tech as of Monday morning. What's next for Georgia Tech? Todd, I'll throw it to you first.
Well, obviously, they're going to look for an athletic director before they hire a head coach. We all know about the candidates, Monken, Deion Sanders, and et cetera. Tyson Helton, the Coastal Carolina head coach, the Kansas head coach, all the familiar names that are thrown out, and Monken would be one heck of a candidate. The OC at Georgia did a wonderful job with Stetson Bennett. He's recruited this state. He knows it well. He's recruited against everybody in the SEC, and he's also, which includes Georgia Tech, even though they're in the ACC. He's recruited against the rival. He knows this state really well. A really good offense that he runs at Georgia. Of course, they have great players. That helps. But the most intriguing candidate to me is Deion Sanders. What Deion Sanders would bring is folks actually talking about Georgia Tech football. Whether they can get it done or not, we'll see. Deion Sanders has done a lot for Jackson State and HBCU football alone. And wow, that would just be one heck of intrigue hiring for me to bring Deion Sanders in here at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, look, both the AD and the head coach were fired officially Monday morning, but rumors had swirled for weeks. Georgia Tech had lost 9 straight opponents to nine straight FBS opponents, just absolutely not even competitive. Collins was 10-28 at Georgia Tech, and let's face it, you mentioned some of the great names. Deion Sanders played for the Braves and Falcons, played in the ACC. There's an easy connection. But would Georgia Tech fit Deion? Deion wants to win national championships. At Georgia Tech, that's not the issue right now. They just want to be competitive in football games. Another one to me, I think the interim coach, Brent Key, might get an interview. He's a former player, graduated from Georgia Tech, coached under Nick Saban at Alabama. He's only 44 years old. I like Brent Key. If he can win a couple games down the stretch on a very tough schedule, he may get an interview, maybe even get a nod at the job. You mentioned Tyson Helton. He's currently the head coach at Western Kentucky University. He coached Sam Darnold under his brother Clay. That's right. You could see 2 Heltons in the state of Georgia. Again, he coached number 3 overall pick Sam Darnold at USC. A lot of people say that's why he was so successful. Also, he coached Bailey Zapp, who almost threw for 6,000 yards a few years ago at Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky. So, and then I'll throw one outside the box. Doesn't require a buyout. His name's not mentioned. We don't know if he wants to coach or not. And I do agree it's an outside the box hire and it probably won't happen. But Urban Meyer's name must be thrown into this equation. Why not rebuild your image at the school your daughter played volleyball at? He wins at the Power 5 FBS level. He has multiple national championships. And again, I mentioned it, no buyout needed. As we all know, he's a free agent in the coaching world. So lots to talk about, lots to dissect here. It's good to talk Georgia Tech on this show. We haven't done it a lot because they haven't been so competitive, but here we are now, and the AD they hire has to knock this hire out the ballpark. There's also been some other talk about Kennesaw State's head coach. His name is escaping me right now, but he's a head coaching candidate simply because of the triple option. And boosters are saying, why not bring it back? It worked. We were winning games, and we never questioned our head coach's job security. So lots to talk about there. Any final thoughts on Georgia Tech, Wayne, or TC?
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and give my comment on this. And I think that they should hire the current offensive analyst for the University of Alabama, who requires no buyout, Derek Dooley.
Dooley?
Yep.
Hey, we know he's coached in the SEC before. Didn't work out so well. But hey, it's a strong name. We know the Dooley blind's coaching, and he can recruit. And you do got the Saban stamp, Wayne. That's not a bad name drop right there. I like it. TC, any final thoughts on the Georgia Tech firing?
So Bill O'Brien obviously will be a name that will come out. We hadn't mentioned him.
Yes.
He did a great job there at Penn State, taking over a program that is depleted by what was going on with Jerry Sandusky and et cetera. And he did a really good job in Houston, taking the Texans to the playoffs several times. Every time a coach does join Nick Saban's staff to sort of get a restart in his coaching career, he usually ends up getting another job. And Bill O'Brien could get one here. The gentleman you missed at Kennesaw State, the head coach, and I don't see this happening, would be Brian Bohannon. I don't think Georgia Tech is going back to a triple option offense. I'll say it again. The most intriguing name on the list is Deion Sanders. And you want to talk Georgia Tech football, you want everybody to talk about Georgia Tech football, that's one. And then the other one to me is Todd Monken.
Yeah, I like both those candidates. I also like Jamie Chadwell. You mentioned at Coastal Carolina, he's built up a couple programs. He took Coastal Carolina from an FCS school to an FBS school and won 11 games, beat BYU in the process doing so. He does have 3 wins against Power 5 opponents. They are all against Kansas, but it does not matter. Kansas is 4-0 right now, so that kind of looks like a pretty good chink on the belt. But hey, let's move on. UGA turns it over 3 times in the first half for Penn State. Thoughts on UGA's struggles versus the Golden Flashes? Todd, I'll throw it to you first.
Well, what is it? Turnovers are the ultimate equalizer, no matter what a mismatch would look like on a paper. You turn the football over, you give a team who's not as talented as you a chance to stay in the football game or potentially win it. And I'll say this about college football. I said it this morning on Twitter at Corder Todd. To me, there isn't a team that separated itself from the pack thus far. There just isn't. Alabama had troubles with Texas. Georgia Tech struggled with Kent State. We saw Ohio State's opener against Notre Dame. You saw Toledo put some points up on them. You saw Wisconsin get in the 20s, even though Ohio State has this dynamic offense. They still, to me, have question marks on defense. And maybe, just maybe, these teams have slid back closer to the pack than everyone thinks. Maybe Michigan will get over the hump and beat Ohio State again. Maybe Tennessee somehow finds their way closer to the top. Maybe Penn State does. I think the season is far from to be determined, and each and every week anything can happen at this point.
I say chalk it up as a bad week. I just mentioned it. 3 turnovers in the first half. Wad McConkey had a game to forget about. UGA still didn't punt and blocked a punt for a safety on special teams. Their defense is still elite. They outgained the Golden Flashes 529 to 281 total yards. Brock Bowers looked like the best player in college football to me. Have you seen a tight end run the ball 75 yards for a touchdown, guys? Because I have not until Saturday afternoon. It was impressive. I mean, seriously, the guy's got 3 carries and 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, the guy can do everything. Why don't they let him sit back
JJ, can I say
and
something?
sub
You
in
and I
for
spoke
Stetson
on
Bennett?
camera. We said this Bowers kid could be as good as any player in college football, and we also
He should
said
get
it's
the
a shame.
Heisman.
It's a shame that the Heisman is regulated now to the quarterback or the running back position. It really isn't given
wide
to
receiver.
the true best player. And Bowers, to me, is as good as any player in college football.
I agree. I think he should be on the ballot. I think he should get some votes. I think he will get some votes. We saw Devonte Smith win the Heisman just recently. So look again, the guy's got 276 receiving yards. He's got 15 catches, 2 receiving touchdowns. I mentioned 3 rushing touchdowns. The guy can do it all. Georgia moving forward must be able to punch the ball in the red zone. 3 field goals against the Kent State Golden Flashes on Saturday afternoon. You do that against your SEC opponents. That's not going to work going down the stretch against your Tennessees, your Kentuckys, and your Floridas. Got all in the end zone. Any final thoughts on UGA, Wayne, or TC?
Yeah, I tell you this, they're playing Missouri this weekend, right?
They are.
Yeah.
And they call
Well,
it Como, Columbia, Missouri.
yeah, well, they're I'm not so sure if Missouri is still in the mood for wanting to win games, but against Auburn, they didn't look like they really wanted to win that game. Of course, neither did Auburn. So,
Yeah, that was an interesting ending. You mentioned it, and you hit the nail on the head. That last sequence going into the end zone, it literally was the most confusing play. I thought it was a touchdown. Then I was like, wait, I think he did drop it. He
Yeah, he
did
did.
drop it, and Auburn covered in the end zone. So the game was over on that play, yet alone. Guys, we're running out of time. We'll get back to our contenders in each of their conferences and our college football playoff race next week. Let's go ahead and move into Major League Baseball after beating the Nationals 8-2 Tuesday night. And combined with the Mets' loss, the Braves are tied atop the NL East, Sal Litica. Let's talk some Major League Baseball. Let's talk some chop. How important is it for the Braves to win the NL East and secure the number 2 seed? Todd, I'll throw it to you.
Look, this is a pennant race, and it's good because other than this pennant race for the East, the NL East, and the last wild card spot between the Phillies and Milwaukee, right now we're just trying to finish the regular season in baseball and get to the playoffs. And honestly, this race is lost its luster ever since they went to where you don't have to win the division to get to the playoffs anymore, and you can qualify as a wild card. The last great pennant race we had, or divisional race, was 93 between Atlanta and the Giants. Each team went over 100 games. It went down the last game of the regular season, and the loser had to go home, which was the Giants, and they had the second best record in baseball. So to me, this has lost a lot of its luster. Baseball is a rhythm game to me. It really, whether you qualify as a wild card and win the division, it don't matter a whole lot. I know you get a little bit of a bye, but baseball is a game where it's not like football. You want to keep playing. It's a rhythm game. You want to keep your timing, hitting, pitching, fielding, all that. Where in football, you want the rest. So to me, yes, it would be nice to have a division title to add to the resume, but if you don't win it, oh well, you got the playoffs in front of you.
Yeah, you still got your ticket punched. I hear you, but I think it's a big deal, especially for the Braves. Maybe not so for the Mets, but I think it's huge for the Braves to get that first round bye. Look, and I think here's why. It sets up your rotation for the playoffs very nice, and it allows some guys that are banged up to get some rest, like maybe Ronald Acuna, who's had the back issues now, along with his sore knee. And maybe you can get Alzi Albies back from his fractured left pinky sliding into second base a couple weeks ago. So hopefully those guys can come back with the benefit of a first-round bye and hopefully winning the division. Look, the Braves did record their 14th win versus the Nationals this season, which ties a franchise record for most wins versus a team in a season. That would be broken Wednesday night if they were able to sweep the Nationals in D.C. That'd be really cool to have 15 wins against your division rival. Pretty cool stuff. Guys, can we go ahead and pass out the Rookie of the Year award to either Spencer Strider or Michael Harris? It's really just a matter of when the season ends at this point, because one or two of them's getting it.
Yeah.
And who do you think it is? We'll say that. Wayne, Todd, I'll go with you.
I'm going with Strider on this one. I was really impressed
Strider?
with his pitching. Yeah, that's my pick.
TC, what say you, buddy?
Wow. What Harris has done is pretty darn right incredible. He didn't start the season with Atlanta. Either one, you really can't go wrong who you're going to pick. Golly, this is really tough. Like I said, either one, you're going to win. Harris, to me, though, I know he got his 20th stolen base on Monday. He needs one homer to become the 14th rookie in Major League history to have at least 20 homers, 20 steals in a season?
Yeah.
And he didn't start the season till May 28th, which was the 47th game of the season. To me, right there, you got to give it to Harris. He plays every single day. And if it wasn't for Harris, you would give it to Strider. But me, you got to give it to Harris on that alone. Where would the Braves be where would they be without each one? But where would they really be in the outfield without this kid Harris, who came up from Double-A, by the way?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the nod goes to Harris because of the everyday player and the fact that he did have a shortened season and he's done this with just a handful of games in terms of baseball career. Let's face it. But I think the award, I think we've seen a co-rookie of the year before. I'm not sure if I'm right on that or not, but I'd give it to them both. I'd seriously say either one of them could do it. They both have a 4+ WAR, wins above replacement. The Braves have players just all over the place that are young, contributing to this ball club, and it's been fun to watch. But I would split it down the middle and give it to both of them. They've just both been so impactful. Spencer Strider, look, Major League Baseball record, fastest to 200 Ks. Braves franchise record for only rookie to throw 200 strikeouts in a season. Tied or broke the Braves rookie record for strikeouts in a game. Just keeps on breaking records, and this guy is awesome to be around. You see his pregame routine. He's kind of like a yoga, kind of a laid-back guy instead of an uptight, hey, I'm the pitcher, I got to get my job done. He's kind of laid back. He jokes. When Austin Riley made an error the other night, he flipped his hat sideways and laughed at him. So I just love what Spencer Strider has brought to this team in the locker room. He acts like a veteran on the field. He pitches like one, too. So I'd really split it down the middle. Guys, we're running out of time. Let's get to our pick six real quick. Last week, Wayne took the cake at 4-2, and we are all tied at 11, 12, and 1 overall. With that being said, we're doing 4 college games, 2 NFL games, and we do the Monday spreads here on ATL Prime Sports. If you like the content, ring the bell, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and search for us on Apple and Spotify, ATL Prime Sports. Without further ado, let's get into the famous pick six. Number 7, Kentucky 4-0. Number 14, Ole Miss, also 4-0. Mississippi's the 6-point favorite, the over-under 54.5. How we want to do this, guys? Who wants to go first this week?
I'll go first.
All right, Wayne's going first this week. Wayne, what say you? You taking Ole Miss?
I'm taking Ole Miss to cover, and I'm saying bye-bye, KU.
I like it. TC, what you got?
You said it was Ole Miss. Say that again. It went out on me.
Ole Miss is a 6-point favorite at home at Vaughn Hemingway Stadium versus number 7, Kentucky. Both teams are 4-0.
Ole Miss is a 6-point favorite at home. Wow. Yay. That's a tough game to pick. Oh, before I tell you that, JJ, real quick, two players have never won the Rookie of the Year award. In each league, it's only been one player in its history. My answer would be this, golly. Wow. Kentucky's played everybody close no matter who they play. But I'm going to go with Ole Miss to cover.
Ole Miss covers. Well, I like the Kentucky Wildcats and the points. I'll tell you why. It's mainly because Chris Rodriguez is back in this game. This game will feature some top-tier running backs on both sides, Evans, Rodriguez. Whichever team runs the ball and controls the clock will win this game, and I think the difference maker is Chris Rodriguez. Give me Kentucky and
JJ, I'm going to change my mind. You made me change my mind. I'm going KU.
UK and the points.
That's it. Neither one of you are getting cake now. When Ole Miss wins that game, you are not getting any cake.
Sorry, Ole Miss Evie and all our friends at the Rebel Walk, but I just think Chris Rodriguez is the difference maker. Number 9, Oklahoma State 3-0. The Mullet's got his team in the top 10 at number 16, Baylor 3-1. Baylor at home in Waco, a 2.5-point favorite. Over under 54.5. Remember, folks, this is Monday spread. The game is 3:30 p.m. on Fox. I'll go first in this one. I like Gundy to win the Big 12 this year. I've said it. OK State coming off the bye week. Give me the Cowboys to cover.
Yeah,
boom.
I'm
Cowboys
with you there.
and the points.
I'm taking the Cowboys and the points as well.
I'm not. I'm a man, and I'm definitely over 40, and a good defense always beats a good offense. Baylor. Well, it's Baylor. Baylor favored by 2.5, or is Oklahoma State?
Baylor favored by 2.5.
At home, right?
At home.
Yeah, give me Baylor.
Baylor covers. You got it. All right, third game, college. Wake Forest, number 22, 3-1. Number 23, Florida State at 4-0, which is pleasant for college football. Florida State's a 7-point favorite. The over-under is expected to be huge. It is 66, 3:30 p.m. on ABC. I'll go first again in this one. Two good quarterbacks going at it. Jordan Travis at Florida State, Sam Hartman at Wake Forest. Expect a high-scoring matchup. I'll go with FSU coming off the bye week again. That's my theme this week. Teams coming off the bye week, got that extra preparation early in the season. Give me Florida State at Doak Campbell Stadium to get to 5-0.
I'm taking FSU as well because Norvell is coaching for his job, and so far he's got that team motivated.
FSU covers as well.
Florida State, woo! Give me the cover.
We are all on FSU. I thought I'd be the only one to do that. That's impressive, but I think we all see the same thing. Florida State looks like they have athletes on the offensive and defensive line again. They got playmakers on the outside. And again, Jordan Travis can throw the football fairly well. Our fourth and final college game of the weekend is another ACC ranked versus ranked battle. Clemson, North Carolina State, 4-0, coming into Clemson at 4-0. Clemson is a 6.5-point favorite. The over-under in this one's 41.5. It is low, 7:30 on ABC, again in Death Valley. Wayne, TC, then myself on this one. Wayne, go ahead.
I'll tell you, on behalf of my good friend, Miss Cassie Fox, I am going to pick Clemson on this one. Simply because I want her to be happy, and she's never happy if the South Carolina teams don't win.
JJ, you go next.
All right, I'm taking Clemson to cover. I'll tell you why. That Clemson defensive line is absolutely loaded with talent. You had DJU, who threw for a career-high 5 touchdown passes last week versus Wake Forest. On the year, he's got 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. Ulanglele is taking care of the football, and I like things to get going again. Again, Clemson's defensive line, loaded with talent. Defensive tackle Breesy and defensive end Murphy, I think they're going to get going, and they'll get after North Carolina State's quarterback and make it tough. I like Clemson to cover.
I'm going to use the same philosophy I used with a Baylor game. A good defense always beats a good offense, and Clemson Southlands and Tigers.
All right, we move to the NFL, folks. Our first game, we are picking the Falcons as usual. This is ATL Prime Sports. Browns, 2-1 at the Falcons, 1-2. Cleveland comes in as a 2.5-point favorite. The over-under in this one is 48. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on CBS. I'll go first on this one to have some fun. Falcons are 3-0 against the spread and have an outright W. The Browns have the best rushing offense in football, around 190 a game. Falcons near the bottom in stopping the run. Kind of tells you where I'm going with this one, but I'm going to fake you out because here's the deal. They don't count the fact that Atlanta can run the ball as well. They're top 5 in the league, and the Falcons are just flat out due to beat the Browns at home. They are 0-5 against the Browns at home, and they haven't beaten them since 2010. Falcons and the points, baby. Give it to me. We're going 4-0 against the spread. That's it.
Yeah, well, I might need an intervention because I'm picking the Falcons as well.
You would pick you homers, HOMERS, period. You are homers. I've picked against them all year long. I'm 0-3. The hell with that. I'm still picking against them. You mentioned why, JJ. Nick Chubb, Browns, and they cover.
Yeah, it'll be a tough one, but I just think the Falcons are flat out due, listeners, and that's where I'm going with them. Our Seahawks and Lions pick rounds it out. Seahawks 1-2, Lions 1-2. Detroit's a 6-point favorite at home at Ford Field. Over/under in this one, a little higher than the Falcons game at 50. 1 o'clock p.m. on Fox. I'll go first again for the fun of it. Look, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett get going in this one. Geno Smith can hit the deep ball if he wants to, if he's got time. Safety Tracy Walker's out for the year for Detroit. I think that's the difference. Geno Smith gets the job done. They may not win the game, but they'll cover the points for me. Give me the Seahawks and the points.
Yeah, well, everything in the universe tells me do not pick Detroit. And so I'm picking Detroit.
No, for me, look, the Lions win. It won't be by 6.5. Seattle will keep it close. Seattle covers. Detroit's got injuries, not only, as you mentioned it, in the secondary, but they have it at the running back position, even though they're very deep, as Eddie Murphy would say, undercover. They have an excellent rapport there at running back. St. Brown's nicked up. The Lions are going to have to fight, claw, and scratch mentally and physically after the debacle against Minnesota last week to win this one. And if they do, it's going to be by a whisker. Give me Seattle. And I'm not a homer like you all are.
Well, I'm glad we saw that one coming. Anyway, let's move on to our final thoughts of the show. My final thoughts, I'm taking my hat off to an all-time great. Congratulations, Albert Pujols, on hitting 700. And congratulations to the St. Louis Cardinals on clinching the NL Central and getting in the Major League Baseball postseason to give Pujols one more shot. That's my final thought. Wayne, TC, your final thoughts.
All right. Well, my final thoughts is I have come across some inside information coming out of State College, Pennsylvania. Apparently, there was a attempted walk-on by a guy that I think the Falcons and maybe even Detroit Lions should take a look at as far as quarterback goes. It's a guy named Chad Powers. So remember that name.
Hey, you know what they say? If Brady can play till he's 45, Chad Powers can play till he's 26, baby.
That's a good one, Wayne. I love it. My final thought is I just want to say thank you to my broadcast partner, Tanitra Batiste, who did a fabulous job. Her and I had one of the SIAC games of the week on ESPN+. Miles went to Central State and won it. It did a great job defensively and offensively. That Miles is a team that's played a really tough non-conference schedule, one of the toughest non-conference schedules in the country for HBCU football. Played a another good D2 team, gave them all, got beat pretty handily, and then they played Valdosta State in week 3, who's ranked, and they lost. But they were 0-3 coming to the game, and Central State improved much from a year ago offensively. But Miles, as they always do, they always win the conference over, and they always do it the way they like to do it, is run the football, and they did it very effectively. And I just wanted to say thanks for Tanitra for doing a great job in the booth with me, and helping out a tremendous amount, and made the broadcast very enjoyable, and look forward to working with her in the future.
Yeah, you guys sounded great. I want to say the final thought is our thoughts and prayers go out to all the citizens in the path of the hurricane that's bracing Florida right now. So thoughts and prayers out there with you for Wayne, for TC on the other side of Atlanta.
My prayers are included, JJ, and I know Wayne's is too.
Yep, ATL Prime Sports, our prayers are with everybody. Guys, for Wayne, for TC, I'm JJ here in Atlanta. Thanks for listening to ATL Prime Sports. Please like, please subscribe. Get you one. We'll see you next week.